The hospital room was quiet except for the steady rhythm of the machines, each beep echoing the fragility of the moment. An old man lay weak and pale on the bed, his breathing shallow, his body frail after a long battle with illness. The air carried the weight of inevitability, as though everyone present knew the end was near. The door creaked open, and a kind nurse gently guided a golden retriever inside. Buddy, the man's loyal companion through years of joy and struggle, padded softly across the floor. His steps slowed as he reached the bedside, as if he too understood the gravity of what was happening. With soulful eyes glistening, Buddy placed his head tenderly on his owner's chest. The old man stirred, his trembling hand rising with what little strength he had left, brushing through the familiar fur he had stroked countless times before. A faint smile flickered across his face, a moment of peace in the storm of pain. The connection between them spoke louder than words. The kind of bond that only grows deeper through years of unconditional love. The nurse quietly stepped back, giving them space, her own eyes wet with emotion. The silence in the room was profound, not empty, but full of unspoken goodbyes, of gratitude, of love too vast for language. Everyone watching knew what Buddy already felt in his heart: this was their final moment together. And in that tender stillness, time seemed to pause, allowing love to linger a little longer. The old man's breathing grew weaker, each rise and fall of his chest a fragile reminder of how close the end was. His hand trembled as he tried to lift it, reaching toward Buddy. The golden retriever instinctively pressed closer, his warm fur brushing against the man's fingertips. With a faint effort, the man stroked his loyal friend one last time, his lips forming a weak but gentle smile. In a whisper, barely audible, he murmured, "Take care, my friend." The words hung in the air, fragile yet powerful, carrying a lifetime of love and gratitude in their simplicity. Buddy whimpered softly, his eyes never leaving the man's face. He seemed to understand what was happening, his body pressed tightly against the bed as though he could hold his owner here just a little longer. The beeping of the machine slowed, each sound stretching out painfully until finally, it fell silent. The old man's hand slipped from Buddy's fur, lifeless and still. The golden retriever let out a low, aching cry that broke the silence in the room. His head dropped onto his owner's chest once more, refusing to let go even though the warmth was fading. The nurse, standing at the foot of the bed, covered her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. In that moment, the room was filled with both grief and a profound sense of devotion. It was the kind of goodbye that tore at the heart, pure, unconditional love refusing to fade, even in death. The stillness in the room was broken only by Buddy's quiet whimpers as he lay against his owner's chest. A doctor entered, his expression neutral, carrying the detached air of someone accustomed to these final moments. He stepped closer to the bed, checking the old man's pulse, but Buddy lifted his head sharply. His eyes locked onto the doctor's face, and a low growl rumbled from deep within his chest. The nurse frowned, surprised. Buddy had always been gentle, known for his calm nature. Yet here, his gaze was sharp, almost accusing, as though he sensed something hidden beneath the doctor's professional mask. The doctor shifted uncomfortably, glancing away as he noted the time of death. His movements were brisk, efficient, but his eyes betrayed something else, something that wasn't grief. Buddy didn't look away. His ears perked, his stare unwavering, following every flicker of expression on the man's face. It was as if he was trying to read the truth that others couldn't see. The nurse, watching the silent exchange, felt a strange unease ripple through her chest. For a moment, it seemed less like a farewell and more like a confrontation. The doctor scribbled notes on a chart, avoiding eye contact, while Buddy's growl lingered in the air, low and insistent. The tension was unmistakable. In the quiet aftermath of loss, the dog's instinct had awakened something, an unspoken warning that there was more to this death than the surface revealed. Later that evening, the hospital corridors were hushed, the kind of silence that seemed to carry secrets. The nurse who had brought Buddy into the room was gathering files when she overheard a hushed conversation near the physician's lounge. The doctor's voice was low but sharp, tinged with frustration. He spoke to a colleague about prioritizing the patient who could actually pay, dismissing the old man as a case not worth the extra effort. The words cut through the air like shards of glass. The nurse froze, her heart pounding. She pieced together the truth in an instant. The treatment that could have prolonged the old man's life had been delayed, or ignored, because someone else with deeper pockets was considered more valuable. Her stomach twisted with anger and disbelief. Suddenly, Buddy's growl, his piercing stare, made perfect sense. The dog hadn't just sensed grief, he had sensed guilt, negligence, betrayal. Tears blurred her vision as she realized the depth of the injustice. The loyal man who had spent his final moments whispering love to his dog had been robbed of more time, robbed of dignity, because of someone's greed. She clenched the files in her hands, trembling, but her resolve hardened. Walking away from the door, she knew she couldn't stay silent. Buddy's instinct had spoken louder than words, and now it was her turn to act. For the sake of the man who could no longer fight for himself, and for the loyalty of the dog who had seen the truth. She would make sure the world knew what had been done. Weeks passed, and the hospital scandal unraveled after the nurse bravely reported what she had heard. The doctor was removed from his position, his negligence exposed, and though justice could never bring the old man back, it ensured no other family would endure the same quiet cruelty. Through it all, Buddy remained, a faithful soul left behind, grieving but not forgotten. The nurse, unable to forget the way the golden retriever had pressed against his owner's chest, decided to bring him home. At first, Buddy lingered by the door, waiting for footsteps that would never return. But slowly, in the warmth of her care, he began to heal. His tail wagged again, his eyes softened, and his spirit found a new purpose. Soon, Buddy walked beside her through the hospital halls, this time not as a grieving pet but as a companion to others in pain. Patients smiled when they saw him, their hands reaching out to touch his golden fur, their hearts comforted by his quiet presence. Where medicine could not reach, Buddy's love did. Each visit was a tribute to the man he had lost, a way of carrying forward the bond that had defined his life. The nurse often whispered to him, "You're giving the love he gave you." And in truth, Buddy was. From loss came healing, from betrayal came justice, and from one dog's loyalty came hope. Sometimes the purest love doesn't end with goodbye, it transforms into something that touches lives forever.